Hey, what's up, y'all? It is another VO podcast, and how's everybody doing?
Pretty good,
Doing
dude.
good,
Pretty good, man.
Pretty darn good.
You're talking normal, and then you start, hey, y'all.
Yeah, what is that? So
I'm never
funny,
ready
Charles.
for it.
Yeah, you
Welcome
like,
to
turn it on.
another VO podcast. So the guest today is going to be
I apologize for rubbing off on you, Charles.
I know.
Which Charles is going to show up today?
That's what it sounds like. Get your banjos.
Guys, we have a special guest on with us today. She is a very popular audiobook narrator, an amazing voice actor. She lives in Sweden.
Ooh.
I do not.
She lives in
So,
Switzerland.
Oh my God.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't even know that. Well, that's still pretty cool on both sides.
You're like, oh, awesome. And she is an absolute pleasure to meet, especially in real life.
Aw.
She's got a smile on her face. She cares about her craft. She cares about the people that she connects with.
I do.
And she's a wonderful guest. And her name is Stephanie Nemeth Parker. Welcome to
Hello.
the show.
All right.
Thank
welcome,
you.
Stephanie.
Hello.
Hello.
So what time is it where you're at right now?
4 after 8 in the evening.
4
Oh, 4 after 8.
Okay.
All right.
Or
Wow.
2004, as we say.
Yeah.
2004, right.
Yeah.
We use that. What's the proper name for when you use those timestamps? Is it
Military.
Or Zulu. Okay, so when I worked for the aviation, we called it Zulu time.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still use it now. I used it when I was I used it when I was at the airlines a lot, and I used it when I
Oh,
was...
well, that makes sense when you worked
yeah.
at the airlines. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. But Stephanie, so,
Sure.
first of all, thank you for being on our show. Thanks for
Yes.
responding to my email, and you seem super enthusiastic about coming on, and we appreciate your time to be on the show with us today.
I'm happy
So,
to be here. Yeah.
I
Thanks.
like to start out with instead of diving right into questions about, what you do and this and that,
Oh,
let us
God.
get to know a little bit about Stephanie. We kind of know about you from, Facebook posts and, social media and stuff,
Sure.
but tell us and our audience just a little bit about yourself. Like, what makes you tick?
God, I don't know.
Isn't it the heart, right? Is it?
The ticker.
Oh my God. So I'm a trained actor. I majored in theater in college and went out to LA after that. Tried the whole acting thing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Acted with some cool people and did some cool things when I was there, and then met a guy and moved to Switzerland. I did radio in college, so when I got to Switzerland, I was felt kind of lost. Like, what am I going to do here for myself?
Mm-hmm.
I got on an English show that was here, like a kind of a cultural for English people who I live in Basel, Switzerland, but it's for the whole country. Kind of, like what's going on, what's happening. And so I kind of did that for a while, and I got to know a guy named Jake from New York. He was super funny, and he always created these great promos for the show.
Mhm.
So we'd always do Southern stuff or just make fun. It was a lot of fun. So one day he went to do I guess a demo at a studio in Zurich called Jingle Jungle. And you kind of go there, and it's 3 hours, and you record all these scripts that they have for you. And he was like, you got to do that. It's really, really cool. And I was like, okay, I don't know what else am I doing? Why not?
Mhm.
So I went there, I did that. And actually most of it was, like I've told you before, most of the things that I do over here is British English, because that's what's over here. So, and my accent's pretty good. So I did that. And then my first job though was for the Winter Olympics in 2007, I guess it was.
Wow,
Oh,
that was your
that's
first
cool.
job?
That was my first job for Omega. Wait a second. For Omega Watches, right? It was it was 4 TV spots that ran during the Olympics.
Wow.
That's
Really?
pretty cool.
I got
First job,
paid,
huh?
right? I got
Yeah.
paid
I don't want to talk about my first job.
$450.
That's it.
Really?
For
Because
4
they-
spots?
They got
For
me
the
over
Olympics.
here. For the Olympics. They got me over here. I didn't know anything. And
Oh.
Yeah.
So they did it. It was like
Right.
a flat great.
I thought you
kind
better
of a
tell us.
thing.
Yeah, I hit it big with this
Yeah.
first job, and we're
This
like,
is like
well, we
$40,000.
did not. Yeah, that was my first job, and I have to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine was
no.
that same amount, but just knock off all the zeros. Yeah. There you go.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All the 1 zeros. Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. So I started doing voiceovers over here, and not a lot because there's not a lot in English over here, right? So it'd be kind of more like, what do you call them when things are entered into like competitions and you do like, is it a case study, like a case
Yeah,
study
yeah.
type thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my kids got older, and I was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? I want to do something, and so I found audiobooks, and then I jumped into that, and I'm real competitive. Like I was always like
Sure.
like a guy's girl. Like I was a tomboy. I love sports. I loved all that kind of stuff. I love watching football games and baseball games, soccer game, anything. I love sports and competition. And so when I got into audiobooks, I just it was brutal, the first one, because it was just out of nowhere. I just did an audition to kind of just do one. Like I hadn't studied anything, I hadn't trained for anything. I was like, okay, I was going to do it, see what happens. And of course I got it, the first one, because of course, that's how it is. You're not prepared, and of course you're going to get that one.
Sure.
So so 4 months and like 80 hours of work later, I produced my first audiobook, and was, I love torture and pain. So I was in love and continued to do more. And then from there, I just kind of, did it part-time, finding things when I could. And then I started, but I was like a dog with a bone, right? Like I had a taste of it, and I'm like, well, wait a second, what is this? I want a piece of that. I want to do this. And it's acting, and it was tapping into that I didn't really, I've acted over here in Switzerland, but it's just, wasn't all the time and hadn't been for a while. So then I got a hold of it, and I was like, okay, wait a second, I can do this. What else do I have to be doing? And so I kind of actually went about audiobooks in kind of a roundabout way. And I think me not knowing anything about it really was why I've been so successful so quickly. Like why the first nomination I got was Best Female Narrator of the Year, because I entered myself not really knowing that people don't do that. And then, and it was like people were like, wait, what? You entered yourself? I was like, well, yeah, I thought, it's better than fiction because it's only against the women. Meanwhile, not even thinking that it's the best of the year. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
It was just that stupidity, that naivete of just like, it was the only thing I entered. It was the only book that I did that was any good that whole year. It was only the second year I was doing audiobooks. Took a shot, and you know what I mean? So I think that kind of not knowing and just going for it and being really competitive in the sense of not against anybody else, but with myself, like what can I do? What can I achieve? And I want to do more, and how do I do that? And not waiting for things to come to me. And, a lot of people, when it comes to audiobooks, they're like, I'm only going to work for publishers. Or they'll say things like, I'm only going to work with a certain clientele, which is awesome. And you know what? Good for them. They have set their standard, and that's what they're going to do. But I was never like that. I was just like, I just want to work. So I went after books and indies, and, reached out to people who I thought, this is a really cool book. They don't have it in audio. Like, would send them a sample. Like, I could do your book. And they would be like, oh, let's things like that. Because I just was like, I don't know. I want to work more, and I want to do it. So I kind of went out and made my own way in a sense. And of course, as you know, Charles, having friends and peers who are there to support you and listen to your crazy, because nobody really understands the business, right? Like your but like your business friends, right? I mean, that support group is also key to making it. I'm not doing it all by myself.
That's how we
here.
started as an accountability group. I mean, before we had the podcast, we would just meet and talk. So
But I mean, that's part of it too. Like, I don't want to say like I did it all by myself, because no, I wouldn't be sane and be here without my friends and people in the business, because nobody, as you guys know, nobody really understands what we're going through.
They do not.
They don't know unless it's the people who are doing it too. Like my husband was like the other day, he goes, like I was in March, he's like, where are you going? I'm like, to the awards ceremony in LA. He's like, weren't you just at another awards ceremony? Like, what are you doing? Just no clue.
There's more than one.
No clue what's happening. Like, didn't you just do that? Well, no. Yeah. So, or like, oh my God, I'm nominated for something. Or he's like, yay, good for you. Just no.
Right. Yeah. No. Like,
womp, 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 womp.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's my little story.
That's
my starting
awesome.
story.
That's really
awesome.
cool.
So besides kind of your story of of starting up and getting over there, what do you like to do in your spare time besides work on audiobooks and stuff? Is there like a passion that you have, or?
I don't have any spare time. Honest to God. Honest to God,
like,
today.
I do audiobooks, guys. Like,
No,
these take
like-
a long time.
Right.
Yeah, but they do. But also, like, Monday. So I flew back from Denver from an authors convention that I went to there for audiobooks and signing stuff, which was really cool because I got to like sign stuff for the characters that I do for graphic audio. So Sigale and Fourth Wing and La Habra and Crescent City, like all these really popular romantasy books, right?
Oh, cool.
But I get back, so I'm flying. I leave Denver at 6 o'clock at night. I've been up since 6 o'clock in the morning that day. Fly back to Switzerland takes me until 6 o'clock at night on Monday to get home. Or no, 7 o'clock. Sorry, 7 o'clock. I'm downstairs at 7:30 doing character lines for a video game that they had sent me on Saturday, and I wasn't here to do, and so I had to do, an hour and a half of video game lines, and then I did video game lines yesterday and today along with my books. And so yeah, I mean, honestly, like right now it's a little bit crazy. Like I don't have a day off until June 7th, I think.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Gracious.
Working every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
wow. I mean, it's good to be busy. Being
For
busy is
sure.
a good thing.
But I think in that position, you really have to love what you're doing, which, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
guessing you do at
Yep.
this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I do.
yeah. So, wow. That's wild.
well,
Yep.
even for working all the time, and like you that you are booked solid out. You don't have a day off until the middle of June, so you don't want to get burned out, and you need to find time to kind of nurture your own mental health. Right?
I do,
So
but I
what-
don't.
I
That's
was
the
going
problem.
to say, so what do you? Oh, not
Yeah.
do. Okay, well you don't do
I'm
it.
not-
Okay, great.
Right now, I'm not. Right now,
Skip this part.
Neglect is the word we're looking for.
moving on. No, I love to travel. Honestly, I love to travel, but I've had a couple of hard years. My mother-in-law and father-in-law both passed away within a year of each other just this past year.
That's tough.
And my husband's an only child, and it's really been difficult for him.
imagine.
And
Only imagine.
yeah, so he's and like his dad was getting older and his mom was sick, and so it's been 2 years of just not really leaving the house and being here and trying to be here for him, also working full time. It's been really hard, but I love to travel with my family, to be honest. Like before everybody kind of got sick, we were traveling, like 2 or 3 times a year. And being in Europe, it's easy to kind of go. You don't have to like have big trips to go places and spend tons of
Right.
money. You're like, I can take it's like an hour and a half to Barcelona, or like 3 hours on the train to Paris. So it's
I was
not
going to
like
ask, is that mostly by train when you're traveling?
probably by plane, probably mostly by
okay.
plane.
Yeah.
Just because it's really like an hour to like everywhere, hour and a half.
Well, that's pretty convenient.
Yeah, so traveling's good. I mean, we have rescue dogs too, so like to go for walks with them and stuff like that. But
Oh, I was like, you mean like the St. Bernards with the? Oh, you
The
mean
run-
your
Oh,
rescue,
barrels?
not rescue
Yeah, dogs
dog
you rescue,
with the,
not ones
with the hot
rescued.
chocolate.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I'm just relieved to hear that she does something for a few minutes a day to take a breath. I mean, my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Starting to worry there.
I felt guilty today because I came in this morning and worked for about an hour and a half. And then I left, my wife had to go to the chiropractor. I'm like, well, I'll take you, so I go with her to the chiropractor. We go somewhere and go out to eat. We come back, and it's, here it's 1:16. So I've literally worked an hour today. I feel terrible, Stephanie. I feel terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm going to work harder. I promise.
Yeah.
come on now.
Yeah.
Come
You're gonna
on
be
now.
you're
Everyone listen to this right now. If you think you're doing a lot, you're not.
You're
yeah.
not.
Just
Get
I
up
mean-
to it.
And the odd thing though with all of us, and we talk about this in our accountability meetups sometimes, that the goal for I guess we'll say commercial video game blah 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 voice actors is work less, make more.
Yep.
Sure.
And
That's my
and
goal.
audiobooks, you can't work less and make
And make
more.
more.
You can
You
work
can't.
more and make more.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I've been. I mean, last year was my best year, and I worked. I worked a lot. I worked
I'm
a
sure.
ton, and it was only my best year because I had the Toyota commercial. Right, like it was the Toyota commercial national, or I think it was for wherever it was. It was national commercial, half national, whatever. I don't know
That's
however they
what's
go.
up.
Yeah.
That really pushed me over the where I haven't been before. But it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't, it was like 5 hours for that commercial, for those 2 commercials and 4 radio spots was about 2/3 the same as what I did in 400 finished hours of audio, which means which means 400 finished hours, which means at least 800 working
hours,
not even including prep
Right.
and blah 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 blah. So
that's one of the questions that I had as you progressed in your audiobook career. How much are you outsourcing and how much are you doing yourself?
So basically, everyone says, "Oh, you should." I mean, the thing is that my audio is really, really clean. Like most people love to get my audio. They're like, you can come in late. It's okay. We know how good your audio is. And my other friend is like, you should do your own editing. It's so easy. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't have the brain I don't want to. Like, my back starts to hurt. I'm here, like, looking at the files, going back over everything. I don't listen anymore to anything. There's like one series that I still do by myself because she likes a quick turnover. But everything else I give away, or I do it with a publisher or something like that. Somebody
they
else
have their own
handle it.
editors, or you have
They have their own
like, your preferred
editors.
and stuff?
No, I just give my clean.
See,
my
that's.
clean raw
I
audio.
would do that if I were to do audiobook. I wouldn't want to edit it. I mean, I would probably be sick of listening to myself, like hearing the same stuff.
Well, you shouldn't. I think you shouldn't really go back and listen to yourself. It should be so perfect as you go.
Yeah.
That the editor really has nothing. They're really cleaning up tiny little things. I mean, that's my opinion as far as, if you're starting out in audiobooks, really learn how to edit and everything yourself so that when you're turning something in, it's very, very clean and very close to perfect so that later everyone will love you.
Right.
Because that's also important, right?
Punch and roll.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
You have to. You have to in a book.
I was watching her live yesterday on TikTok, and it was really interesting to watch her do that. Because you're using your punch and roll, and then I think when I came in, you were like, oh, I'm going to enter this person's name into like your spreadsheet or something, because you said, and this is the thing, like, Stephanie knows her stuff and she knows her authors, because she's like, yeah, because this author likes to bring back characters from like, 4 novels ago or whatever. And so she'll type the name in, and then I don't know if you put a little
create a voice
recording
file.
or clip.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a CRM for fictional characters. Like, you go back and like keep up with them that way.
Absolutely.
Well, if they pull up a name and you're like, who is that? And then you're like, oh, this was a person I did 7 books ago. So you make sure you have the same name or the same voice tone.
Same voice, exactly.
Wow.
Even though nobody probably knows, but I
probably
know.
wouldn't care.
Yeah.
The listener probably
But the
wouldn't.
3 diehard people.
But the fact that you do that, that's really cool.
But you got to have the consistency. I was in a writing group for a while and wrote a little bit of fiction just for my own enjoyment, not to become a fiction writer. But that is something the authors do, is they keep pages on their characters for hair color, stature, how they walk, all kinds of different things, who they're related to, because they have so many characters, they'll forget. And if they're going to forget the author, we got to keep up with it as the voiceover narrator too.
Yeah. I think it is important. I say, oh, the three diehard fans, but you care enough to deliver exactly the character and exactly that person and that voice and that picture in the listener's minds. Because if you are invested in listening to the audiobook, I remember when something will just be off, right? Like that whole picture of the story, it gets a little tweaked. The hue is off a little bit because something's not right. And it's just this thing you feel. Because I remember when I was a kid watching Dragon Ball Z, and some new version came out and Vegeta's voice was different.
Change. Yeah.
And I was like, who is this guy? Like it threw everything off for me. It was like, okay, well now it's not, the story's not just going. My mind keeps resetting or kind of getting taken off track by every time this person talks. It's like, because I was invested in those characters and I was like, this is what he's supposed to sound like. And who's this faker? You know what I mean? That's like, what are you guys doing? So, it changes. So I think that's super cool.
That is really cool.
You have that, you care enough.
Yeah,
to make
exactly
it
right.
exact. Yeah,
But I have to.
Exactly.
Right.
Because I listen to audiobooks, right? And it would bug the hell out of me if I listened to somebody for 3 books and suddenly the voice changed. I'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah,
What's
and then you're
happening?
like, who?
Yeah.
Who is that? Wait.
But that just ties into why you're successful at what
Exactly.
you're doing. I mean, it
Exactly.
all ties together. You got to, I hate to say it, I know this is awful, but there is a very low give a shit factor for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
there are a lot of people going into this, jumping on ACX, have no clue what they're doing, and book after book after book, somehow they keep getting books. And they all
probably
suck.
for cheap, I'm guessing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's
At
for
that
cheap.
point, it's just
it's
like,
for cheap.
100% royalty share, and then it goes to you.
Yeah.
It blows my mind though. Like I don't understand how anybody does any of this half-ass. I mean, this is my job. I mean, how do you?
Well, people don't look
Right.
at it that way. They think it, they think they're thinking get rich quick in a sense, or they're thinking
That's what
like
it
like
is.
all I got to do is talk into a microphone because I saw this Facebook ad and that's what they said. I mean, like who knows what it is? But
Get
there's, I mean,
rich
there.
quick.
Yeah. Well, I know.
We
Definitely
know.
mean, yeah.
But yeah. You guys know for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
not
Charles
that
and I had a
way.
workshop back in January, and one of the first things we said, and it was all about getting into voiceover, and we were just like, first of all, this is not a get rich quick industry. Like it sounds like it because it seems like super easy, which there again, it's not easy. Yeah. So
There's investment of time, money, tears, sweat for sure in the booth.
For sure. I tell
Sometimes
everybody.
blood if
Yeah.
you're constructing things and you cut yourself. Like, I mean, it's a task. Okay, so audiobooks.
Yeah.
I have come to find that audiobooks are a hate it or love it by
I was
voice
gonna
actors.
say, you had to-
It's
you had
like
to-
they're
that's what I
like,
was saying
I'm
earlier.
audiobooks, I'm in. I love doing audiobooks. I've done hundreds of them.
Yep.
Compared to like I will forget it. I'll 20-foot pole, keep it away from me.
that's how
And you know, what do you tell the people that have maybe thought about I'm asking a question like it's for other people. I'm actually asking it for me because I got burned super hardcore on an audio. The very first one I did when I started, it was Parenting Adults. That was the name of the book. I was getting into voiceover. This was going to be I was so proud of it. You know, it took me forever, 86,000 words. Didn't know how to edit stuff. Like, I mean, it was a task.
Yeah.
And it was 100% royalty share.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. I don't need to get paid now. I just want something under my belt. Like kind of that.
That's what I did.
You know?
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. The thing is, I sent everything. I did everything, sent everything through ACX, this and that, did all the steps to try to get them to contact me back because they weren't approving it. And finally, after the 3 times that they call, they'll give you the full name, address, physical address, and email address of the person that, you know, is putting the job out there. And it was an empty field in Alberta or Toronto, I think it was, like empty grass field. And it burned me so bad, like I was like, never again.
Wow.
100-foot pole, get it away
Did
from
you ever
me.
find the audiobook out and about?
No,
Like,
no.
I was gonna say, like, maybe if you found it somewhere, you could trace it back to somebody. But yeah, that's crap.
But I mean, it was just heartbreaking for me, you know, because I hate scammers. But for people that have been scammed or are like, no, that's too much for me. What would your advice be to them? Would it be like, yeah, just don't worry about it because you're never going to get over that hump? Or was there a certain point where you were like, yeah, like, okay, I really like this?
I mean, for me, it's all I had in the beginning, right? Like I just started doing like, you know, voiceover commercial promo like last year. I started in
That's when you got into promo and commercial and stuff?
January last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and then got lucky with my Toyota commercial in February or whatever. I think I did it when I was in Atlanta. VO Atlanta actually recorded that at a studio. So
awesome.
Yeah, that was my first. I've only been doing that stuff for a year in the U.S. market because it's completely different than the European market. It's totally another thing. So I didn't know any different, and that's all I had was audiobooks. I think as an actor, it really appealed to me because there's so much you can put into it, and I'm a reader. I love to read. But what I tell people who kind of think about other kinds of VO work, for me, it's also kind of nice knowing I'm going to make at least $5,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? Because I've got books scheduled. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
I know that for where are my books
It's like,
now?
it's stability, essentially.
It's a base.
Right?
Yeah, it's a great base.
I have books through November already in my schedule, and I have books scheduled into 2025. So I know I have money coming in. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And if you schedule it right, and you build good relationships, then you can know that, maybe you just do one book a month. Right. And then you have a couple thousand coming in, and you've got a little bit of a cushion while you're doing all of your other auditionings and all those other, things for the other kinds of VOs that you want to do. So that's what I would say. I think it's a good kind of security blanket if you like acting, if you like being other characters, if you like accents, if you like, stepping out of your comfort zone or whatever. So,
I love it.
Yeah. So now for the rest of the podcast, you need to speak like that. Thank you.
Not a problem, actually.
Right.
That was the whole last book I did was in this accent. So it was lovely.
Yeah. And
I love it.
when I was listening to your TikTok live, did you have a character that didn't have an accent?
Her
You did,
mother
right?
was American. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember listening, and you, as the narrator, you had the British accent.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would
And as a
go from the
character.
mom. Yeah, the mom to the narrator, to the mom to the narrator, and you did it so well. It was so believable.
So seamlessly.
It is seamless, and if you
back
close
and
your
forth.
eyes, it's definitely not the same person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was funny. Like, I was on there for 4 hours because I had to finish that book, and it was madness. And there were so many people in there that at some points I was like, because the author is American, I knew that I had Brits in my TikTok because I'd asked a question about, she wouldn't say parking lot. She would say car park, right? And they're like, yeah, it would be car park. So it was like all these things were going on in there. And I think like maybe an hour into the live, I was asking a question, and then so somebody asked me something and I dropped out of my accent, but I really had kept it because I wanted to keep, even if I was talking to the people in the live, I wanted to keep my mouth in that space, right? Because it has a particular place it sits. And I dropped out to answer something, like someone asked me where I was from, and I was like, oh, from, born in Florida, blah, blah, blah. And then like I had like people like full caps.
Like spamming, like, what?
No, what? You're not British? I'm British. I thought you were British. And I was like, oh my
That's like
God.
high praise.
Good.
High
Awesome.
praise right
That's
there.
the big stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, best day of my life.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. You
It was
said
really
you
cool.
like you got into acting like young and whatnot, or early on. You went to LA and everything like that. Did you ever do any theater? Like, are you a fan of theater? Like, did you do any of that?
I did. I did theater in LA. One of the best days of my life was when I got to act with Anthony Hopkins, right? So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, no, seriously. So he was in
Alrighty.
we did a master class
Sir Anthony.
in Meisner that we were the first like scene study kind of to do for him in the class, in this master class. And because it was a Pinter play, British, and because I was hard into an Agatha Christie play, I was the lead. It was called The Spider's Web. So I was like literally listening to my English, British accent tapes for an hour each way, going down to Torrance to, perform or to rehearse. I was full in the accent, right? Like really studied, really, really in it. And so we did the scene, and my scene partner wasn't getting what he was supposed to do. So Anthony Hopkins stepped in. Can't even talk about it. And he was feeding him lines. So we're acting together.
Yeah.
And afterward, he says, you have to do this play. This play is for you. This is so good. He goes, where are you from? Are you from Sussex? And I was like,
Anthony Hopkins said that.
Anthony Hopkins said that?
Wow.
yes.
Goodness.
And then my life was over, because
And then-
what else could I do from there?
My life was over.
I've completed
I've-
the mission.
Literally, it's literally the best day of my life. Honest
Yeah,
to
of
God,
course.
it's like literally one of the best days of my
kidding.
life. Yeah. So, but because of the accent, kind of a thing, because of that theater stuff, like Spider's Web and everything. So I was doing that kind of theater there, not too much because I was trying to do more like TV and whatever, which didn't really work out because I had a full-time job and I was like, enjoying my life in LA. And it was, I was working at Sony Music. So I had went to a million concerts and just
Sweet.
living the LA life and the,
Mhm.
it was just amazing. But when I came to Switzerland, like I Like I came into like, there's like an amateur theater group that they have here, and they're a really great group of people. But like I walked in the first day of like auditions, and I'm like, I handed my headshot, and they're like, what? what is that? Like it's an amateur theater group. Like nobody's handing in headshots. Like they're looking at me like I'm a total freak. And I was like, what are you talking about? So, it was kind of hard. Like I would go to rehearsals and I would be like off book first rehearsal.
Sure.
And everybody comes in with their scripts and they're like ready to begin.
What's off book for
off book means you don't know.
Everything's memorized.
You already know your lines.
I know my lines.
Oh, I didn't memorize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they didn't. So it was kind of hard sometimes in the amateur to live in that area because they didn't really take it as seriously as I took it in the sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But we put together, I joined up with some people who kind of took it seriously, and I did Streetcar Named Desire. I was Stella. It was amazing. I played Anna in Closer. I was Sister James in Doubt. So like I had some really cool parts that I got to play here.
Yes.
So, I mean, I love theater. Yeah.
For sure.
Loved.
Wow.
It's over.
Yeah, I guess you don't really have time to do it anymore out
it's
there.
over.
Yeah. Kind of in that same boat. Like, I mean, I never got to like a professional level of theater like that, but there is a theater that, I moved away about an hour away from where I used to where I grew up 3 years ago. And I've gone back like once or twice to do a little something here and there. But man, every time I go back, even if I just go to watch one of their shows, I mean, I miss it a lot. And in the theaters that are closer to me, I just kind of feel like it's not at the same caliber as what I was doing out there. So that doesn't have an appeal to me. But yeah, I'm like you. I miss it, to an extent.
Mm-hmm. So let's just keep audiobooks. What is one of your biggest successes? I don't want to say successes. Maybe one that's most near and dear to your heart, right? And then on the flip side, maybe one that was your biggest nightmare.
I mean, it's hard because like I feel like I'm so much always kind of into the last book that I did, kind of a thing.
That makes sense.
Like I could say NSFW, the book I was nominated for Best Female Narrator of the Year, was a great project. I mean, it really was. I mean, it could not have been more suited to me. It was kind of like a Me Too-ish book in the early noughties, at a TV network kind of a thing. It was real. I mean, I worked in entertainment business and I knew all of those things that were happening and going on. And but I just did a book called Bless Your Heart by Lindy Ryan. It's kind of it's a cozy horror. I've never heard that before, but it's
a cozy horror.
Absolutely a cozy horror. It's so good. It takes place in East Texas. And
of course, bless your heart.
Bless your heart, exactly.
Bless
your
heart.
But that's a great book. So I really loved it, and I got to play. It's 4 generations of women in this little East Texas town who run a funeral parlor, and then will put down the dead when they are restless and raise up. Right. So I mean, it's just a great book with a lot of great, of course, with a lot of great characters in it. And so, and she actually just sold the rights to a TV series. People who did Handmaid's Tale and like Yellow Jackets.
Wow.
That's big.
It's big. It's
Cool.
gonna be great because the characters are just so vivid. You got like old Doocy. She's 80 years old, right? She's got her little butterscotch in her cheek always, and and then you have it just goes all the way down the line. It's just a really great book. Nightmare, I can imagine, is the book that I'm getting ready to record.
Wow.
Ooh,
Coming up in a couple days because it is it's called The Villain Edit. And it's basically like a take on, kind of a behind the scenes of like The Bachelor, right? So I have like 20 women to voice who are all of similar age, not a lot of accents to distinguish. And so it's going to be a really big challenge to make sure that I really differentiate everybody in the, who's in the cast and who's in the book. So
that makes me actually think of something real quick. So if something like that, where where you find out you've got 20 different characters you got a voice, what does your prep time look for an audiobook? Or I mean, we can use that one as an example. Like not prep time, but like prep process, and maybe how long that takes you. Like where do you start and where do you end just before you start recording?
Right.
Well, honestly, like I
Wow,
just
for 20 characters.
that's not even like that. I mean, it's just
That's not
hard
even
for
that much,
for
Charles.
one book.
That's nothing, Charles.
Well, I mean, I did a sapphic epic fantasy with like I have like 80
an
something
epic.
characters.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, and all female. It's like sapphic, so there's like majority women, and so it's really a little bit. It's really hard, but so like I think like honestly, this book because I got it kind of last minute, and I just finished prepping it yesterday, maybe today, maybe. I'm just gonna kind of go do it as I go. I'll just kind of.
Oh wow.
I kind of have an idea. Like I've written down. I write down all the characters as they come. I write down who's in which chapters, so I kind of know who's around more.
Okay, so like
who's
no one
around.
sneaks up on you, kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
who's around who? Yeah, no. So I write down all their accents or anything that like sets them apart, like spunky or dramatic or bitchy or whatever. Anything that I can grab on to kind of help, form a bit of a character because you don't want to give everybody an accent if they're not from somewhere that needs an accent. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're catching the flavor of the person's voice. Like it doesn't have to be exactly 20 different people that you hear, but you kind of want to be like, oh, like I have like a girl who is like from California. So, she's like a spin instructor. And I was thinking, we could play her here. She's super cool and fun. And she's the drunk one, but she's like, she's chill, right? She's spinning and living her life, and then, there's like just things like that you can just kind of add some flavor to a person.
Every time you keep like throwing in an accent or like a character, I find my cheeks hurting and then I realize I'm smiling. It's just like, every time you like change it up, I just feel like I want to start smiling. I'm like, what is happening?
Do you pre-read before you actually record? Do you read the whole book or no?
Have to.
I've heard that.
I would feel
I've heard
so.
that.
I feel like you have to. Yeah.
But also like they say, oh, you found out on the last page that they're from Russia or whatever, and you think, yeah, come on, you've heard that for. In this book, literally as kind of a side note, it's like mentioned that they're Italian American from New Jersey. Not mentioned before. They don't have that many lines, but still, you've in theory, you've voiced them already. And then suddenly at the bottom, you're suddenly like, oh, because they're back in New Jersey. And you're like, holy mother of... So you have to... So that's why you read through all the way. I mean, there are parts I think you can skim. You can skim some things that are kind of descriptive stuff, but when it comes to any kind of a character detail, you got to be...
Yeah.
How much do you have back and forth with the author?
I was going to ask, do you work with the author or the publisher
like
more? Or does it just depend on the book or what?
Depends on the book and who's it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, so for instance, like this book is with Harper. It's my first time working with them. But I feel like I'm a little bit late coming to this because I got it kind of late and I'd already planned a trip and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really good about saying you should have things in a couple of weeks ahead so we have time to get back with the author. I mean, it's really a good process. In theory, if you're not traveling in America and you're out of your depth, and so hopefully I'll be okay. But they're usually very good about, the publisher likes you to go through them, which is great. Because there's like, you're not bothering the author too much with a million questions that you've come up with whenever you're giving them a list of things that you have to talk, that you need to know about. And then they're passing it on. I mean, when I work with my indie authors, I mean, it's really great. We'll either have a Zoom call or we'll talk about, or I'll send like my ideas for accents, unless you work with them a lot and then they just start to trust you and they're like, yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Or, do you have I just did a really big, kind of I don't know what you call it, fantasy lit RPG. And it was really, the only things we talked about was, do you want any particular place to have an accent? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to split people up because where they're from or, like different lands or whatever, So things like that is the only kind of really difficult or important aspects to know.
That's interesting. I'd never thought of the process of like, oh, you wouldn't work directly with the author. You would work with the producer, right? That kind of thing. For the authors that you do get to work with, what have you kind of found out about what kind of people authors are? Are they just everyday regular people and you never know that? Or is there something that's like, that's why they're an author?
I mean, honestly, like I just am in awe constantly, especially when I'm reading fantasy or like these cozy horror. Or just when I really read a good book, I just think, how the hell did they come up with, this completely different land and a magic system, and just backstories that just go on for 500 years ago was the beginning of and you're like, holy hell.
Dedication.
The imagination.
Dedication.
They were those, they had to be those kids, like some that I know that grew up that had, their Matchbox cars in the driveway and they're all talking to each other and they're saying, well, this one was built in Arizona back in 1960, and they just work that way. A lot of people do.
I mean, it takes something special for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
It's a depth. Yeah, it's a huge depth.
Shoot, I tried to write a book for, what is it, NaNoWriMo in November or whenever it is. And I was like, I got an idea and I'm going to write a book. I got 700 words in and I'm like, yeah, done.
Yeah,
that's about it.
It always sounds like a good idea, but then for me, it's always like, 700 words in or something like that. And it's like, I want to not do this.
Yeah. I'm going to stab this pen into my eyeball.
Yeah.
This is
hard.
how
I mean,
awesome this
it's
is.
difficult. Like, I know it's complicated and it's there's a lot to it. But you have an idea and you think, okay, but I can get this idea down. But there's just so much more to it. There's just so much more to it.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
props,
Like,
huge respect.
when I think of characters, I was working on just developing a couple of my own characters, and I kind of wrote my little synopsis of this character, and I ran it by a friend, and they're like, "Well, what was it? Well, is his mom and dad alive? Okay, well, how'd they die?" It's like, well, so does he have any kids? And it's like, so what did they eat for breakfast this morning? Do they have enough money? Like, what does their house look like? Like, what is are they in a desert area? Is like a dry thing? You said he went to work. How did he get to work? Did he walk? Did he ride a horse? Did he drive? When he got to work, like, who was at the blacksmith area? Like, who are the people that work there? Oh, he worked with a couple guys. Was he close with any of them? Right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, and I mean, even those backside characters have their own stories that you just need to know everything about. Okay,
but that's acting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I had to do
100%.
bios for all of my characters. I had to know all of that.
Especially if
shit
you
for
did
everybody.
Meisner, you have to come up with backstories. I mean, when I first got into acting, I got an agent very luckily when I was 20, and then my agent suggested a lady who taught Meisner to start acting classes. And I, at least at that time, which at this point this was 14 years ago, I just did not have the discipline to apply the things that I was being taught in that class. Like, I mean, like at that point, I just wanted to go. I mean, like I would goof off. I just didn't have the discipline, and I wish I did back then. I think I would be better at it now, obviously. I say better at it, more disciplined now to at least maybe absorb some more. But I mean, Meisner is such an interesting in the backstory, getting into the backstory, because she would ask me questions that I was like, I didn't even think to ask myself this, I mean, like and even if I did, would I be able to understand and use that in my performance kind of thing? So, I mean, like, yeah, you're exactly right. Like that is acting 100%. So,
wow. Yeah. So, I mean, just like that, it's like my little synopsis that was this big should have been like a chapter, you know what I mean? To really understand like this character's thinking and what they're going through. And because of all that stuff, how they're going to act in this one little scene, in this situation, how they're going to act because of all these other factors. Yeah. Super, super interesting. So you kind of mentioned like accents we love your accents, right? And everybody loves your accents, and yours are awesome.
Is that the right word? Accents?
Accents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like accents better, actually. Sorry.
My accent.
Accents
you know what? If it
you got.
No, I
that
said,
works.
and your accent.
Oh, hell.
Accents is-
Yeah.
Oh, hail, Troy.
Yeah.
Pull it
I
out.
speak for a living.
We're with you.
So what's a good way for people to develop accents that you found out? And how did you develop and really curate your own accents that you have?
I mean, I majored in theater, so you got to go through all of that. And, I did, coming from Florida, South Florida, which is very northern, I didn't really have an accent until I moved to Georgia for high school. And even then, I got to high school and I was like, oh my God, everybody sounds so dumb. I was like really like an accent snob, right?
Yeah,
And then by the time I got to UGA, where I went to finish my college years up at, I was like, all right, if I'm going to be an actor, I better get an accent because this doesn't work any other way. And then, of course, my mom is from Georgia, so I say y'all all the time. And when I'm up talking to her, or when I'm talking to my friend Mandy from Tennessee, it's all, I get all Southern in a heartbeat. And my dad lives in Texas, so it's like I had the whole thing, and I'm like, I need to absorb and listen and figure it out. Honestly, I got tapes for, British accent back 20
you
years
mentioned
ago.
that you listened to tapes back and forth when you were going to do that play. So
Exactly.
So I started listening and picking it up.
Yeah, I started there, and then but I always had a desire to do an accent when I was young. My mom would be like, "What are you doing?" Right? So you're doing accents all the time, just doing all kinds of accents and voices, and I think there are some it's called Accent Help. It's a website you can go to, and there's a guy there who's kind of created these little packets that you can listen to and work off of that are a good place to start, I think, and they're really affordable, like $30, $35.
Oh wow!
To start. And if it's something that you think you're going to do for a video game or a play or an audio drama or whatever, then I would take some lessons. I studied with there's a couple of people, Amanda Quaid and PJ Oakland. On, I think I did with PJ Mandarin accent I had to do for a book, and Boston accent. And then Amanda, I did like a brush up. I just did this romantasy where I had an English and an Irish and then New York and kind of Chicago. So I just did like a mashup just kind of let her listen to what I'm doing over and over again. What I just did, which I think is really, really good and kind of interesting, is that I reached out in a kind of a group of female audiobook narrators and was like, hey, I need to be working on I want to perfect my English accent. Like, it's good. So it doesn't really make that much sense to work on it and pay $200 an hour for, for these kind of tiny, tiny things that it's only me having to work on it will only help. So I said, hey, why don't we do a tandem? If anybody who's British will help me just 15 minutes, I read for 15 minutes, you help me with what I'm not getting quite right, and then you work on your American accent, and I'll help you with what's right.
Nice.
And then, so it really, I had a couple sessions, and they were great. They were really, really good.
That's really smart.
That's what I would recommend. Find somebody who, because you're going to want to
can tell you, right?
be able to do both, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're a UK, I know a lot of UK actors who do American accent characters for video games there, right? Because they don't have people and they don't want to wait till America wakes up and all that shit, So I think there are people out there who I think the tandem idea is worth a shot, and not like a big commitment, like 15 minutes, maybe every other week, something like that. If it's something that and not like you have no idea what you're doing. I'm talking about kind of like fine tuning an Irish accent, for instance, or something like that, right? So,
right.
Right. Oh, then I get the Scottish accent, then there's a bit different in that. The Scottish, the Irish.
I love it. Do you find yourself walking around the house and talking in accents, like just like breaking it out and everything like that?
My kids are they're like, stop, Mom.
My girlfriend's like that too. She's like, it's not you. And I'm like, but it's fun for me. And she's like, well, it's not fun listening to it.
Or like, wait, do you get the same thing with character voices? Like, I can't even practice like my character animation voices because everybody's like, what are you doing? And I feel very self-conscious. It's really hard. It's really hard.
I feel like that's like sometimes that's like the best times to practice, because some of the things I'll say in different accents or different voices, it's stuff that I'm doing, like where I'm going to do, like, like if I'm going to go pop, like, I got to go make the dinner or whatever, I might say that in a weird voice. And it's like, why are you saying it like that? And it's like, because it's fun. I don't know. Like,
because I'm a child.
It's like you said earlier, when you're like, when you're doing an accent or a character, like those things live in a certain part of your mouth. And so like you have to, in order to be able to go in and out of those things, you have to know how to say all those things.
Yeah.
In that formation that your mouth does. So saying different things helps that. In fact, I've heard about, like, if you're going to learn how to do animation, or if you're going to, animation characters and stuff like that, or even if you're trying to learn impressions, pick like one or two words in that person's voice and just say them over and over until like you get muscle memory. And then it's almost like when you can recite some Shakespeare in that voice, that's when you know that you can start branching out and like. But obviously that takes a lot of repetition and it takes a lot of practice just to get in and out of that thing. But
that's practice, right? It
is practice. And that's the best time to practice when you're not thinking about practicing, because if you're going to decide to sit down and practice, then it becomes tenuous, you know what I mean? Or tedious or whatever. It becomes tedious. So doing it while you're not practicing while you're not practicing is the best. That's how I've come to do everything that I do or whatever. So is there an accent that you struggled with the most?
Yes.
Or still struggle with them.
Or still struggle with? You ready for it?
Yeah.
German. And I literally, ich rede Deutsch. Ja, das Schweizerdeutsch, oder? Ich kann Deutsch sprechen. Aber das Akzent ist gone. I cannot do a German accent. I mean, I can. It's really hard. It's like breaks my brain and I have to really like study it ahead of time. But it's really I can do French. I can do Spanish. I can do Russian. I can do any Latin American. I mean, I can do almost anything except German. It's the weirdest thing. I have no idea why.
Do you have it differentiated between like French and like Quebecois?
No, I can't even go up to Canada. No, there's no way. Not even going to go there.
Like because I asked that because when I went to Quebec, I thought that because they spoke French there, that's just what it was, French, and they're like, no, it's French Canadian, and so my French in my ears was like the reference. You reference things in your mind, movies, characters, whatever, and mine was always Pepe Le Pew for French. Like,
you walk around.
This is how you are going to do these things, right? Yeah. And like even the way they said
Canada real quick.
Yeah. And even the way they said, like one of the main roads was it's Côte-Vertu is the name of the road. And I said something, and I was trying to be like, I'm going to say it like the proper way. I was like on Côte-Vertu, and they're like, you mean Côte-Vertu? And I'm like, no, isn't like Côte-Vertu? And they're like, no, it's French Canadian, so it's Quebecois. You say Côte-Vertu, and I was like, oh well, I don't know, it doesn't sound as fancy anymore to me. Kind of like dulled it down a little bit. But
they took out the bullshit.
Yeah, they took out the pomp, and do you ever find when you're doing accents or when you're reading an audiobook and there's two accents that are very similar, but they're definitely different areas or different accents, but then sometimes maybe if you're tired or you're reading a lot, sometimes they mix a little bit.
Oh God, I have 4, right? So Spanish and Italian, it's very hard for me to do side by side. I have to sometimes like just record one and then I'll go back and record all the other lines in Italian. And then the same for Irish and Scottish. I had a fight scene between a dwarf and a werewolf. And it was brutal.
That was just the random thing that you say. It's like a normal.
That sounds so fun. Of course. But then I remind myself it's an audio.
When you said Scottish and Irish, that's what came to my mind.
Dwarf and werewolf
right?
every time.
Come on.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I got to check some of this lit RPG stuff.
Yeah. We are getting close here to the end here. Where can people find you obviously you go live, which I did not know, so that's pretty cool. But where can people find you? Website, socials, anything like that, if they wanted to look you up and kind of follow along with you more?
Yeah, I mean, on TikTok, I think it's my name, Stephanie Nemeth Parker. I always say Nemeth because people don't understand Nemeth.
The H is there, yeah.
Yeah, the H is there. And then they're like S Nemeth Parker on Instagram. I usually post there a lot. My full name on my websites there as well.
Okay, awesome.
That's very good. Art, really quick before we close up, are you going to be at One Voice Dallas?
I don't think so.
No. Do you go to One Voice in the UK?
No.
No? Okay.
I kind of just do VO Atlanta. That's like my thing. If I'm going to come to the States, it has been. It's not going to be next year, but it's always kind of around the audiobook stuff. So it was like a really great week tie-in. I'm there already because I'm flying from so far. It's hard. So I think this year, I think it's at the same time I'm going to the World Sci-Fi Fantasy Convention in Glasgow.
Whoa.
Instead. So that'll be fun. I'm excited.
That's
One of
cool.
my friends is going to be, a couple of my friends are going to be there. So,
okay. Well, if you are nominated for awards and probably going to win something again, if you do that, if you're at Silvas in December, I'll be there at the end of this year. So
listen, I'd pray to get a nomination simply so I have an excuse to go there and see all of my VO friends, because like that's such a great place to go. There's like no, there's nothing to like. There's no panels to go see and all those kinds of things. Just hanging out with the people and having a good time and celebrating everyone who's nominated. So like I hope I get something. It would be great just to go and see everybody and see LA. I love LA in December. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great place. Okay.
Hope to see you.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for taking your time. You're already at the end of a long workday, and we now know that...
I have another 2 or 3 hours of recording to do.
Man.
Okay.
Night out.
So thank you doubly then for cutting into
time out of your work day.
Your long work day to take a break. Well, to take a break with us. But to really, kind of just tell us a little bit more about the audiobook world, your story.
Fascinating.
And it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
It was great to meet y'all, definitely, and see you again, Charles.
All right, we'll see you again soon. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time on another VO podcast. See ya.